Welcome to Revoicing the Future, a podcast amplifying women's voices in the music industry. Just as revoicing a chord creates a completely new perspective on the invaluable notes that make up the whole, we're doing the same, giving women the space, the spotlight, and the seat at the root they've always deserved. Every month, join us for candid conversations and stories worth hearing from the women who make up this industry. This is their platform. Together, we shape the industry, one interval at a time. Revoicing the Future is presented by Women of NAMM, powered by AKG, and co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olson. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Revoicing the Future. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Nat.
Well, we are back. It is April. And before we dive into the episode, which we are so excited about.
Oh, it was so great. We record these right after when we can. And my goodness, we are still just swimming in. You all are in for a stinking treat because what a wise gal you're about to hear from.
But before we do that, we have some news that we would like to share, a little update for you all. Steph, do you want to talk?
Yeah. Let me do my best. Oh, God. Why am I nervous? Okay. So, as you all know, I have been going through grad school and this major life transition as I move into becoming a therapist. I've been in the trenches of grief work and everything I've been doing, and it has been wild to be doing that and also doing all these wonderful projects. And so as I near the end of this kind of chrysalis transition time, I'm about to graduate and become a counselor for real. I need to be figuring out what that looks like. Your girl needs to build a small business and figure out what her work and day-to-day is going to be. So with that, I am gutted and sad that I will be kind of stepping back from the day-to-day of the podcast, which is so hard. But yeah, you gotta sadly make space to fill it with something. Yeah. So in that, I won't be very far. I will be co-founder and available.
You've
for
always
Nat's
been
beck
co-founder.
and call. I know, but you were so sweet when I was like, I don't know. You were like, I'm gonna call you co-founder. That's at least you're still gonna be something. So yeah, I shan't be far. I'll be back when things call me name or when Nat calls me name. But yeah, just a huge thank you to you, Nat, for having this idea and bringing it to me, and for being my teammate in this, which I think has shaped us both so much. Like, what a freaking honor this has been. And then Julia, listening, you've been such an incredible teammate. You both have taught me so much about self-advocacy and being a team and supporting each other, like what it means to be on a team of gals that are just fighting for each other, and this idea. And NAMM and the Women of NAMM teams that we worked with over the years for giving us a chance to do this and supporting us every step of the way. And and everyone that we've talked to, that I've gotten a chance to talk to here, like, I've been so shaped. I think I said this earlier, but it's true. I've been so shaped by this work and all these conversations and everything you all have shared with us. And I'm just so grateful to have been part of this as much as I have, and to have been having these conversations every month when we've had them. So I can't wait for more whenever that looks like it happens next. But yeah, the sad. You'll be hearing a little less of me, but I won't be far.
Yeah. I've been keeping it together this whole entire time, and then you just started talking, and I'm like,
I know. Transitions.
It's like, we've been talking about this for a really long time. This is not something that is just quickly happened, but I don't think I can begin to express what this journey has been like with you by my side, right? This was just some little thing that we just decided to start 6 years ago. And as we're recording this, like, we're really around that 6-year anniversary of when it all started. And to watch your growth of where you were 6 years ago, and kind of how you've found your own voice through this and through all the other avenues of work and school that you've done for yourself. I'm just so proud of you. And I know that you're going to do so many incredible things. And there's always a seat. Her influence in the questions that we ask and everything, she's always going to be there. She's not going very far. She's just not going to be part of the everyday. And I love you. And I'm so proud of you, and thank you for everything.
And just so proud of you too. Like, as you're saying that, it's bringing me back to editing those first, like, before we brought Julia on, like those earliest ones where I was in there, like, dialogue editing, and just like, this has been a really incredibly formative project for the two of us.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just so proud. I can't wait to see what you keep evolving this into.
I can't wait to see how your business evolves.
Me too. That's it, right? This is so I can figure out what that is. As you'll hear in this episode, it's about being on the path and momentum and just taking one step at a time, figuring out, letting that path rise before you as you walk, and we shall see. But yeah, a lot of transition going on everywhere.
Everywhere.
But yeah, definitely in our little worlds. So yeah, just thank you everybody for listening and giving this project a reason to exist, to bring you something that hopefully has bettered your careers and your lives or made you just feel like you're sitting with some pals whenever you're on. I'm just grateful for you all being an integral part of the cycle of this thing that we have done. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Love it. Well, with that note, I'm so excited to announce our guest for today. Coming all the way from the UK is Sarah Yule. She is the managing director of Orange Amps. And I don't want to give too much away because you're just going to get so many nuggets out of this. But it's basically an episode full of metaphors and analogies, and it makes my heart very happy.
Yeah, it was just beautiful. Yeah, buckle up, get ready.
Just her outlook and view on the music industry as a whole, from how she started to where she is now, and just all the lessons have just been absolutely incredible. That's all I have to say.
Yeah,
sit back, relax,
have a great time.
Grab your favorite snack. This seems to be my new thing now.
And I'll see you when I see you, I guess.
Yes. Love you, Steph.
Love you. And love you all listening.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome to Revoicing the Future. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
So we'd love to start with your journey. How did you find music, and what has been your bird's eye view path to where you are today at Orange Amps?
It's an interesting question. I think music found me rather than me finding music. From like my earliest memories, it was always music related, dancing around my kitchen or singing along or trying to be in a band, much to my mother's dismay at the noise I'm making. I didn't come from a particularly musical family. Like my mum's a huge music lover and had loads of records and used to take me to loads of festivals and gigs even when I was a kid. So I kind of grew up in a very sort of arty environment, I guess. But I was always a bit of a nerd at school. Like I wasn't that naturally arty. Like I wouldn't say I was naturally talented at musical arts. I just really enjoyed it. I was much more of a nerd. Like I liked my English literature, but I was really like a maths and science person. And I really wanted to do something around music. I didn't want to have a 9 to 5, but I didn't think there was a route for me. And I remember when I was about 15, I happened across this booklet from the BBC, which is like the British Broadcasting Corporation here in the UK. And one of the jobs it said was this thing called a sound engineer. And I was like, what is that? And suddenly it just like dawned on me that this could be the perfect thing for me because I could be around bands and music and artists and I could do something that still felt creative, but actually lent much more towards what I was good at, which was more sciencey stuff.
Yeah.
And so I set my heart on it at that very moment that that's what I wanted to do with my life. And so I remember working like 3 jobs through the summer when I was like 16 to save up enough money to do a course in like a private studio and start studying at college. And I wanted to do like A-level music, but I didn't play any instruments by that point. I'd played a bit of flute. I could play a few chords on guitar and pianos, but I didn't have an instrument. And I had to do grade 5 music theory. So I remember forcing myself to do singing. And because I was quite shy as a kid, it was terrifying for me. So I did like the weirdest combination of A-levels like ever. I did physics, music technology and drama because I was like, well, if I can do drama, then it will help me be a bit more confident to force myself into singing. But yeah, thankfully I didn't stick with the singing except after a few drinks and some karaoke now.
There you go. At least it's still there somewhere. There you go.
But yeah, I was really fortunate that I got into the A-levels. I did the college stuff and went to uni and went to a really fabulous institution up in Liverpool in the UK called LIPA, the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts, which was founded by Sir Paul McCartney. And it was just a fantastic creative bed of inspiration. And I met some amazing people and really enjoyed the course. But I think as I was coming out of that, reality struck that by this point, I was also a young mum. So I had my eldest son while I was still at university. So I finished my second year when I was 37 weeks pregnant, and I went back in my final year when he was 7 weeks old. And then I graduated 3 days before his first birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Legend.
I suddenly realized that neither studio work or live work really fitted with a young mum with a baby that needed to breastfeed and stuff. It was kind of, I mean, we're talking like over 20 years ago now. So maybe things have changed now. I don't want to cast aspersions, but definitely 20 plus years ago, getting your boobs out to do a breastfeed in the middle of a session was kind of taboo. So I kind of realized I needed to get a real job. At that time, I thought, well, I don't know if I'm ready for a real job, but I'll get a real job to pay the bills. But in the meantime, I'll just save up so I can get my own gear, and then I can go freelance. And then hopefully I can choose my own hours and do a bit of gigging work. And so I fell into the trade side of the industry by getting a retail job to try and pay the bills. And then it sort of unlocked this Pandora's box, or kind of this wonderland of like, wow, all of these like cool things that I used to use in the studio are all part of these like real companies and real businesses. And I just really fell in love with that side of kind of all of the products and the characters and the innovation. And when I got an opportunity to join one of those companies, it just felt like such an incredible opportunity to kind of combine a bunch of things I was good at, the nerdy side, the arty side, but also what I'd come to realize I was actually quite business-like and entrepreneurial as well. My first kind of brand side job was with a company called TL Audio back in 2005. And that was like my first entry into the music industry. And I think since then I've kind of navigated across everything from that was sort of studio products, a big large format mixing consoles, outboard equipment, through sort of MI and consumer audio and hi-fi audio and pro audio, and really settled here at MI. And I think the Orange has been a company that I've admired since, you know, the early days of seeing bands playing with these products, seeing them at the festivals, seeing them in the studio, and now to kind of work alongside such a historic and incredible brand is just amazing. And I feel like it's a wonderful like conglomerate of all of the things that I've learned across the years are really helping now to kind of find my way at Orange. So yeah, I feel incredibly lucky for my journey, but it's been a slog as well. It's been a lot of hard work.
So rad though. Yeah, all of it kind of coming together.
Yeah, it's still like that full circle moment. We hear that a lot, that everything that you learn earlier on somehow seems to kind of creep back in to this full circle, like wonderful experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think any experience is wasted. It's like, even when you think a skill set that you learn in one situation is so separate, everything is so transferable, and you realize that every little thing that you've done, every little thing you've been through absolutely helps form the shape of who you are now and how things work. So absolutely.
I love the continuity of that. It feels so tied that first light bulb you had of like, oh, I could go this way to merge these parts of my brain and like this world that I love. It's the same kind of thing just as it evolves. And I love how we can look back, we can use everything, but then seeing that through line that was very much there of like the core of you, just kind of keep it on as it evolved too. That you got to really like dig out a place that was very authentically you.
Yeah, I think in a way it's kind of helped. I think I do have that typically British sort of self-deprecating attitude of I'm not very good at anything. But I think I also have that kind of, you know, I don't even think it's ambition. I think it's a stubborn determination. And I think when you combine those two things together with, you know, I'm generally a glass half full type of person. I like to try and look at the positives and everything. So I think sort of the way it happened was very much being like, I'm not very good at that, but I really like it. There must be a way I can make this work. There must be a way that I can find something that I am good at. And I'm sure if I try, this could be transferable. And thankfully it was. Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it was just kind of straight intuition. I think it was a little bit of stubbornness and understanding of where my strengths are.
I have a quick question about the beginning of your journey, because I really love how you said that I was so interested in math and science. And then to gain your confidence, you went over to theater. In your schooling and early education, were the arts readily available to you? Because I'm curious how it differs between the United States and the UK in that access level.
It varies. I mean, I actually moved around quite a bit as a kid. I went to a few different schools, so it kind of varied by school as well. Like when I lived in central London, I went to this amazing junior school called Hanover, and that was really arty and creative. And I remember there being a lot of literature around me. I remember there being lots of access to music education and our teachers being really inspiring, amazing people. But then I think when I lived in some more regional towns, there was definitely less focus on the arts. And I remember even when it got to kind of when I was doing GCSE, which is kind of, I guess it was what college level we have, it's like up to 16. You couldn't study like music and a language or like music and a humanity. It was kind of like you choose arts or a humanity and then you could choose your subjects between them. But it was like you kind of had to narrow it down loads of what you wanted to choose. So I think even when it was like just straight art, for instance, I remember there was, I think, 5 different routes of art. I actually did design, technology, construction because I wanted to make things. So
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I was a bit of a tomboy as a kid and I really wanted to just like I loved Meccano and Lego and stuff like that. And so it's like, okay, so I can do like woodwork and metalwork, or I can do drawing or home economics or like whatever the other one was. And I'm like, yeah, of course I'm going to do construction. So, but yeah, I do remember it being like limiting in terms of, obviously you could do as much maths and science and English as you wanted, but then when it came to the other subjects, you did have to kind of choose your lane, so to speak, from quite an early age.
So you've briefly touched on how you've worked across the audio industry in both sales and marketing roles. How have those experiences shaped you as you've navigated through your career?
I think the biggest thing I've realized is everything within a business is interconnected in terms of how everything links together. And I think I started off in a sales role. I very much like the relationship side of the business. Like through my sales roles, it gave me a huge opportunity to travel and to see the world and to learn about new cultures. I don't think I ever saw myself as a typical salesperson. And I know it's wrong to kind of brandish people within a particular category, but I think especially of the time when I was a salesperson in kind of, the mid-thousands, a lot of the other people with that title felt sort of in a very different camp to me in terms of their selling style or kind of how they operated. And I think I've always been a product person and a brand person and a relationship person. And I think if you're into the product, into kind of the brand and what the brand stands for and the brand values and understanding of relationships, like what does everybody want out of this in terms of the customer, the business partner and the company, I think it's quite easy to navigate between those different departments. I think there's much less crossover, but I think I was actually quite keen to not get stereotyped into just being a salesperson. It's a funny thing because I actually fought to keep sales in my title for most of my career. And if I'm honest with you, the reason I did was when I started out, and this is not an exaggeration, I did not know another sales director that was a woman in the UK in our industry. I didn't know one. The first one I met an international sales manager at Korg, a lady called Tracy that I'm still friends with. But I couldn't find anybody else that was a salesperson. And everyone always was like, oh, is you in marketing? Or are you a PA? Or are you a booth babe? And I was just so determined to like, no.
Yeah.
I'm sales. So I really fought to kind of stay sales and be like, no, I'm going to be a sales leader and I'm going to show that you can be a different type of sales leader. But then after a while, I was like, I'm just not commercially motivated in the way I think I should be to be a sales leader forever. Like I care more about kind of what we're doing, why we're doing. And that's not to say you can't in sales, but I was really keen to kind of, scratch the itch to do a bit more. And I think alongside my sales roles in a lot of companies, I had been doing a lot of marketing. Maybe it was more channel marketing, or maybe it was doing a bit of the direct to consumer stuff or a little bit of the Amazon stuff, or just kind of looped in different places. And so after I did my MBA, I was like, no, I really want to push a bit more into marketing. I really enjoyed that side. And I really enjoy I think it's when you sell audio and music products, right? Audio and music is so subjective in terms of what's good, what's bad, what sounds good, what's better, why, how does it make you feel, that it's so much more than a specification sheet. It's really emotive, and emotive side of things tend to be led more by a marketing team within a business. They sort of deal with the emotive side of reasonings. Sales, it's normally the commercial proposition and the sort of the business management and product. It's more the use case and the key benefits and stuff. But marketing is much more emotive. And I've always admired some other industries, especially like luxury industries, of how they put value into their products, how they help you understand the value proposition and how it makes you feel and what it brings. I think luxury brands do that really well. But even if you think about a perfume, like imagine if this was the perfume industry that we all worked in, and that's so subjective as to what smells nice, what doesn't smell nice, and how it kind of positions how this perfume will make you feel and the sense of it. So I was really intrigued in that and how we could bring that to music, because I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen in my lifetime in audio and music industry is the continued devaluation of music in the music industry. And I think it's like any art. When you take away the reasoning, when you take away the explanation, when you take away the time to help position and you remove the emotion of it, so it just becomes like a commodity, it takes away the value from that industry or from that company or from that brand or from that product. And I thought we really owe it to ourselves to stop kind of this race to the bottom and fight of sea of sameness of the same features and specs and stuff, to really understand how we can put value back into ourselves, put value back into our industry and back into our brands. We're not just another commodity. We are an extension of this creative industry. We are a tool which helps in the expression of art forms. And there is a value, there's a history, there's a rich history with so much of our products and our technology. And I just thought we need to find ways to do that. And I think within the audio sphere, we make so much segregation between this is musical instruments, this is pro audio, this is commercial audio, this is installation, this is residential, this is this is that. Audio is audio is audio at the end of the day. It's a bit like music, right? There's this part of the industry, that part. It's all part of the same ecosystem. And it's like, I got really sort of obsessed with this idea of this one audio bubble. Like when you're an audio engineer and like your job basically is to capture moving air, right? That's your job. You capture moving air, you protect the moving air, and you try and let the moving air be released back out of the speakers with the same beauty as which it was captured. If anything, you've now wrapped it in a silk scarf and you've put a little bow on it and you've tried to make that fall over the ears of the listener in this beautiful way, right? But it's just a movement of air that's been translated into voltages or ones and zeros. But that whole bubble from that point of creation to that point of consumption, it's all interconnected. And everything in between it is all interconnected. And I thought we just need to see ourselves a bit more like that as an industry, that we're all part of this ecosystem from the point of creation to the point of consumption. And our job is to help manage that energy amongst us and let it be, like nurture that energy, like allow it to be. Yeah, just a different way of looking at things, really. So that kind of got me into marketing. Honestly, I hadn't been drinking at those thoughts.
This analogy is awesome.
That might be one of my favorite ways I've heard that put. I think that's so powerful. I have so many thoughts on all of your thoughts because they're so brilliant and wonderful. And just, it's so interesting, right? You are fighting further up the pipelining, right? If like the music product is the thing that is being devalued, up here too, you're still fighting for that valuation. Like it's all tied. But I think that's just the most beautiful way to think about that it is an ecosystem, because there's something that's so precious about creativity at that point and art, that like it's something that is being like crafted by every step of the way, that everybody's part of this cycle of this very human thing that as time has passed, right, it becomes ones and zeros versus voltages, or it becomes like just air in general. But that's so gorgeously put, I feel like, as a way to express that we are all part of this cycle that is just this creative energy that is getting put out there.
I like to talk in analogies. It helps me understand things better. And I think it helps. You realize in audio, there's like a whole language, right? Within audio, there's a whole language that some people understand and some people don't. But I feel like we need to continue to find the right words to help to translate what we mean. We need to continue to kind of keep our language and nurture our language and add to our language. Every year, the Oxford English Dictionary adds new words to the dictionary, some of them under much debate. I think languages can continue with use, but they also need to be nurtured as well. And I think we need to find ways in order to help describe what's special about what our products do. Our products are a small part of that ecosystem, but, products within our industry have helped shape sounds for whole generations. They have helped soundtrack some of the most epic moments in our lifetimes and our generations before us. And I think we should be proud of that.
I want to jump over to your work at Orange. And job titles in the UK and the US are very different, give or take. And you're now the managing director of Orange Amp. So can you explain what the equivalent of that is for the US base listeners? And then like, what does a day-to-day look like for you?
Yeah, so to translate managing director to American English, it's basically like the president. I don't want to be the president right now. but,
The managing director is exactly what you're doing. So there you go.
But yeah, it's equivalent of the president of a company or the US equivalent. And so it's managing the overall business on a day-to-day basis. So it's kind of across the different departments. It's looking after the P&L, the profit and loss. It's looking at company strategy. It's looking at company objectives, looking at KPIs, key performance indicators across the team. It's making sure that we're set on an aligned strategy and a vision, and making sure that our roadmap runs on time and that our sales are driving and that our marketing campaigns are locked in, and et cetera, et cetera. All of that stuff.
Love it. And never probably the same day twice, which probably is still fun after, not wanting that traditional,
Exactly. It's kind of like from the child of the hippie mother that was like, whatever I do when I grow up, I'm not going to have a 9 to 5 in an office. It's like, I guess I feel, but actually the reality is it's definitely not a 9 to 5, and it's definitely not in the office every day. It is super varied, and I like it because it's challenging. And I think without challenge, you don't really feel progress. And for me, like progress is the most important thing. It's like I mentioned briefly earlier that I don't think that I'm particularly ambitious. You know, I said stubborn determined earlier, but I don't think I'm particularly ambitious as a person, but I like to see progress. I like to feel like what I'm doing is worthy, and I like to feel like each year something in my life has felt like it's positively progressed. And it's like if I could finish a year and be like, I felt like there was some positive progression, and it might be a little step, it might be a big leap, but the momentum's in the right direction. That's what I like to see. And that's what I like to see for kind of people around me as well. It's like, can we find some positive progression in what we're doing?
That's really interesting. I feel like that's almost a healthier way, because you're not setting an expectation for yourself too much and holding yourself onto that to be disappointed in the long run. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Are we growing? Are we moving?
If you think about it, setting a specific goal is quite a crazy thing to do, really, because you can only really know what the right goal was to set with hindsight, because it's a bit like you're pointing to a thing on the map, but you've got no idea how far that point is in some ways when you're looking into the future, because it's like you're trying to say with certainty what's going to happen in the future. And no one can do that. No one can say for certain what's going to happen. You can have a direction, but sometimes you don't know how far you've swum until you can look back at where you swam from and realize how far you've come. So I do find it personally healthier to not set a specific goal. Like, I think I can still have aims. I think we all have kind of far-fetched dreams or kind of long-range things that we'd like to see happen in our lifetime or before, something happens to us. But I think on a practical basis, I definitely try and lean into just wanting momentum, because I think momentum and energy is everything. I think if you can find a way to keep driving your energy and you can find a way to create momentum makes things happen. It's cause and effect, right, in life. And that feels much healthier. And I feel sometimes you can actually swim further than you thought you could if you set a goal. It's a bit like, I don't know if you work out or go to the gym or something, but if I go and do a few lengths on the pool and I say, right, I'm just going to do a quick 10 lengths, I'll do 10 lengths and I get out. Sometimes if I don't think about it and I'm just swimming and I think I've done like 16 lengths instead of the 10 I might have done if I'd set a goal. It's the same with kind of doing reps or something. It would be like, I'm going to do 20 squats and then I'm going to do this or that. But sometimes don't count and just push yourself, and you'll be amazed how much more you can actually do. So I think sometimes setting personal goals not only can stress you out or actually belittle the progress that you have made as an individual, but I think sometimes it actually limits you. It puts a ceiling on what you can achieve rather than actually pushing you.
Yeah, it reminds me so much of the book Atomic Habits, the James Clear stuff, right? Of like habit versus goal. It's exactly what you're saying. The point is like to be building the life that then has that momentum, has the day-to-day that like will get you there and have a direction. But it's more important to be laying the foundation and the conditions to then do the thing that will help you do the thing so much more. I think that's brilliant.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone explain that feel, because I'm very similar. And whenever someone asks me, like, what goals do you have? I'm like, I can't articulate it, but I just really loved how you described it Because, yeah, I feel like as long as I'm progressing and I have that momentum and that energy to keep pushing me forward, like what's going to happen is going to happen. And I don't think people really understand that concept. So I appreciate you explaining it, because that was a beautiful way of kind of wrapping that idea up in a short few sentences.
I think people like to deal with actuals, and it's a much more comfortable place. And it's almost like job done. It's like if you sit there, you know, at the end of December and write your New Year's resolutions or your goals for the year, it's kind of like, yep, I've made my goals and I've written it down. And you kind of have that sense of, right, done. It's part achieved because I've written it down. And I think people like having that sort of very clear thing that they're working towards. A lot of people don't deal well with having kind of a bit of a grey area, a bit of a mush of what's going on. But I think it is a reframing, because I think that's actually your point you made earlier. I think that's exactly why it can be quite challenging for some people, because they give themselves such a hard time to try and reach these specifics and can feel like such a failure if that doesn't happen, and because they can't see the other progress that they've made outside of these very specific things. And it's like, it may be that as you go through life, you realize that those specific things you thought you wanted, you don't actually want at all. And sometimes they might be things that you still want, but instead of getting straight there, you might have realized that actually, before I get there, I need to go here, here, and here first. And, you know, I didn't realize that before. Doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you've actually learned a little bit more about how to ensure that you can do those things that you set out to do. And yeah, I mean, I do like to read a lot of books. You mentioned Atomic Habits. Yeah. If I'm honest, I've got that issue, which I think is quite common, where you are addicted to buying books. Yeah. But you don't quite keep up with.
I'm about a quarter of the way through Atomic Habits, I'll say. That's one of my 10 that I go.
I have it somewhere. I have it. I have not read it. So yeah,
the gist. It's kind of like, we got the concept. Yeah.
I bought a book about procrastination and took it around in my handbag for about 3 months. And I was like, I have to take this out because it's too ironic to have this in my bag.
That's funny.
I want to ask too, I'm curious, like in that reframe, so say someone is sitting at kind of like, you know, junction-y time of life and career. It's a really subtle reframe shift, but someone that doesn't have like a very set goal in mind, like how would you express shifting that mindset to like still being able to really get a firm direction, like that feels authentic to yourself, feels like a good road ahead without knowing exactly where that road's leading? Like, are there questions you've found are better to ask yourself, or when you're guiding your team in that way, does anything come to you in that of like how to get into that distinction and go for just right direction, right momentum versus actual at the end of the road?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think that when you've got to a point where you are really like, oh, like what's next, or someone in the team or someone you know is in that place, I think it's probably because there's been too much overthinking. And what's probably happened during that period of overthinking is everything has just got too big. And now it's like you're trying to make these massive life decisions that are impossible to answer because you don't have enough information to make an answer. And you're driving yourself in this loop of insanity because you can't make a clear decision. So I think my advice with that, or what I would do, is just break it down into smaller things. Like actually just rewind it, like break it down into the smaller parts. So it's like, you know, if you're trying to finalize the soundtrack for the entire film, now let's break it down. What's the intro? How does this film start? What do we need to get to? What do we need to do? And just try and break it down into small parts and just kind of, okay, well, let's just start with that. You know, and I think friends and colleagues, a lot of the time, when they're really stressing about something, when you kind of really break it down, there's usually like a fundamental reason why they feel like there needs to be a change, or why they feel like they need to make a big decision. And I think sometimes if you can just get to the crux of that, of kind of actually what's really worrying you here. And quite often it comes down to insecurities. There's an insecurity that's actually sat there that needs to be dealt with. And then it's sort of understanding that insecurity, like what is the root cause of that insecurity? Not to undermine someone's insecurities, but is it still rational? Or have we got to a point where we're starting to think irrationally about this insecurity now? Like, let's bring it back down to kind of a very rational way of looking at things. And then what can we do from there? And I think when people feel unsure of the future, like you can see it now in the world, right? There's no certainty of what's happening in the world right now. There's a huge amount of uncertainty. So people look for security and they want to feel safe. And whatever makes them feel safe, they flock to. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, people want to feel safe. So I think as a boss or as a friend or as a colleague or even to yourself. I think sometimes it's about in these big life decisions or in this kind of thing that you're in right now, a lot of the time it is down to an insecurity, or it's kind of, how do you feel safe taking this next step? And I think if you can then wrap that up and be like, okay, if we do this right now, this is a safer step that you can make. It's probably a safer step than standing still. And based on everything that we know right now, it's not a wrong decision. Now, if you take that step and you don't get one step forward, you've not failed. You've not failed at all, because you took that step knowing everything you knew at that time it was the right step to take. So after you've taken that step, if you're still where you are now, or you're not on that step forward, then reassess the situation then. Do you still want to get to step one? Or do you now want to get to a different step? Do you now need to go somewhere else? Do you need to take a side step in order to take one step forward? What did you learn from that first step that you took? And just doing it step by step, and before you know it, you're up the stairs, right? But you've just had to take it step by step first. And I think when you can get to a place to forgive yourself and accept any decisions you've made that don't turn out the way you think they're going to, it's a really healthy place to be. It's very hard to do. But I think if you always be like, I made that decision at the time because it was the best decision I could make based on all the information I had. Hindsight is a beautiful thing, but unless we actually invent the DeLorean and time travel becomes real, we don't have the benefit of hindsight until we're already post-event.
That was so beautifully stated.
That's good wisdom right there.
All right, we're going to shift gears really quick. I really want to know about the story of your first day at Orange, because I believe it was at the NAMM show, wasn't it?
It was. Why did I think that would be a good idea? But it was a brilliant first day. And I think sometimes like a baptism of fire is exactly what you need. It's kind of, I mean, I made it so hard for myself because I was already planning to come to NAMM anyway before the Orange job transpired, and I was doing a talk. And then the Orange thing happened and Cliff was like, I really want you to start at NAMM. So I was like, yeah, great, I'm going to be there. And then it suddenly dawned on me, like, okay, Thursday morning, I start the day with a talk at the Idea Center and then go straight to the Orange booth as my first day as MD. So I was like, I was terrified that morning. I'm not going to lie. Like I didn't drink anything or eat anything in case it made me nauseous, or I just, you know, when you kind of irrationally think, if I drink a cup of coffee now, I'm clearly just going to throw it over my head in some sort of weird nervous twitch. So
yep. I'm going to get all over my clothes. Yeah.
I'm not going to use hair straighteners because I'll blatantly like burn my forehead. Yeah, so I was really nervous. But at the same time, I mean, I've been going to NAMM since 2005. And so I've kind of grown up with NAMM. Like over the years, I've had some of the most, this sounds crazy, but I've had some of the most special moments of my life at NAMM. Like I reunited with my dad after 25 years at NAMM show. I met one of my brothers for the first time at NAMM show. Like I've got to meet some of my heroes. I had dinner with Stevie Wonder one year at NAMM show. Like it's such a special place for me that it just felt like the perfect place to have this special moment where I can, you know, step into a role that honestly meant so much to me. Like I would have never have believed as a little girl that I would one day be managing director of a company, especially not like a legendary company like Orange Amps. And it was actually just the perfect day to do it. And I felt really held within the NAMM community, and I got to see so many friends and colleagues and ex-colleagues from across the years that it was just a beautiful day. Like when I went home, I didn't go to any dinners that night. I just went to bed because I was exhausted, but my jaw hurt from grinning so much. I'd just been like smiling so much all day that I was like, oh, my face hurts. So it was really lovely. But yeah, I was terrified every second up until it started.
I love the honesty there, right? Because it's so relatable of just, okay, I'm doing this thing, but I'm so nervous.
That's incredible. Yeah. I was reading something this week about how, or at least in the US, like third spaces are kind of disappearing, like other than work, than home, like places where people can gather and just like be and be in community. We're kind of losing a lot of those with a million reasons why. But I feel like we've talked about this in a million different ways as we like get back to metaphors, right? About why NAMM is so special of an environment, because it is the industry all in one place together. Like everything you're sharing, all your experiences that have happened there is a feeling of being at NAMM that just like anything could happen in this kind of weird out of our normal lives third space. Like it's something different than just like, it is like the gathering place, crossroads kind of thing. And there's still something there that is like And there's an element of possibility. And I don't even know if maybe we should try to even quantify it, but you've made me think that there is something that's beyond just, that we are all gathering in one place about everybody being in one place that really just gives it an extra kind of like sparkle out of the ordinary.
I think so. I mean, you'd like to think if you got all of these sort of creative people together in one space that, some magic can happen. But I think it's probably a whole longer conversation for me to tell you some of my NAMM moments. Basically, I met my brother for the first time by accident during a NAMM show.
And it was by accident. That's wild.
Wow.
It's so wild. It's like it would be an amazing movie. Relatively short movie, mind. But I'll tell you the quick story. So I was taking a distributor out for a meal. I think we were going to Morton's Steakhouse. Other steakhouses are available. And they had basically double booked us. And the table was going to be another hour. And everyone was kind of namgry. So I was like, we could wait an hour for the table or we could try and find somewhere else. Obviously no booking. And this was in the days where you really needed a booking. So the rest of the people there was like, yeah, let's go and find somewhere else. So we came out of the restaurant and we started to walk down by the roadside. And I said, well, let's just keep an eye out for any other restaurants. But if we see a cab, we'll jump in a cab and we'll go out of town a little bit because we'll get more chance of getting a restaurant. So I'm walking by the road and I hear someone call my name. And I kind of look round and I don't see anyone I recognize. So I turn around again and then I hear someone call my name again and I turn around and I see this guy walking towards me and he's like, Sarah, is that you? And I was like, yeah. He's like, Sarah, this is your brother, Lewis. I recognize your picture from a photo Dad sent me. I heard you might be in town, but I was just waiting for a bus. And then I just saw the photo walk past me and I just had to say something. I'm sorry if I startled you.
Oh my
so this
God.
like amazing moment where I'm looking at this guy and I'm like recognizing him from a picture my dad had sent me and just like realizing in that moment, like, how crazy it is that, this is like now there's like 40,000 people going around and it's like right in the busy bit of dinners. We weren't supposed to be there. And then I've just bumped into this guy and that amazing, like beautiful moment in my life. All I said was, wow, cool. Hi. If I could go back, I would change it. If I could go back, I would have like this beautifully poetic Oscar-winning speech. But it was real, but that was the eve before I reunited with my dad for the first time in 25 years. So he'd basically, in preparation for meeting me, had been like, I'm going to meet your sister or your niece, whatever, to all my family. And this is her picture and blah, 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 blah. I'll let you know how it goes. And my brother was living in Orange County at the time and was on his way to LA and he'd missed his bus and he was waiting on the street corner for another bus because his car was in service and it was just like, yeah.
Oh my God, it's fate. That's wild.
There are no accidents.
So anyway, it's a special place. Magic happens at NAMM. I know there's a lot of talk about NAMM these days as so many brands are moving towards a more direct-to-consumer strategy and everyone's going through that sort of identity crisis. But I think as a kind of a meeting of minds and a sort of that valuation of the industry that I spoke about, I think it has a value beyond the balance sheet that's worth fighting for the industry and as a connection point. And I think there's a lot of our industry that is still trade-based, that is still traditional distribution model and retail model. And I think we can't ignore that side of the industry as some of the larger corporations and VC and PE-backed entities start to look at different ways and routes to market. I think we can't ignore the routes to market that a lot of the industry still has and the special place that NAMM is.
Yeah, well stated. So you're incredibly involved in the industry, both in Europe with MIA, but also with NAMM. So as what I'm dubbing you as a leading voice in the industry, you've established your own personal brand. And I love the fact that you've dubbed yourself as the sound lady on Instagram. So what has your intentionality been about how you balance showing up in the industry, both wearing that hat of managing director for Orange, but also as yourself?
Yeah, I think the sound lady thing started a while ago. It's kind of, I think from the engineering and producing side, you usually have different aliases and different names. And I've had a few over the years, but I remember I used to do quite a lot of stuff in kind of reggae and dancehall. And obviously in that genre, there's the talk of the sound man. So I always used to be like, well, not the sound man, it's the sound lady. Also, I lived in Liverpool for 10 years and they have a little separate dialect up there and there's a terminology sound, which is someone who's like a nice person or a good person. It's like their sound. So I quite liked sort of a little bit of a reference to Liverpool and also like my engineering background. But that started a long time ago. I mean, like the reason I could get the Sound Lady on Instagram is because I've been on it since it started. I don't know when that was, but like, I had MySpace and Facebook from when it started and Instagram from when it started. So I was able to get that handle. But I think it's always been important to maintain kind of who I am and my identity. Like, I think it's important to be genuinely you. I think when I started out, I remember having doubts of whether I needed to be a certain way or act a certain way to get by. But I realized I just wasn't very good at that. And I think it was sort of coming to a point of realization that, it's okay to be different and there's an advantage in being different. And I think the Sound Lady name kind of allows me to honor that, like who I am and what my background is and what I stand for and what my values are. And this is who I am. I think that's been, a good thing for me to maintain. I think as kind of like a mother as well, it's kind of, you have these different hats that you are. You're managing director, you're mum, you're a wife, you're a daughter, you're whatever. But I think it's important to, like, I'm Sarah and I can also be the Sound Lady, and all of these are genuinely me, but it allows me to kind of have the different sides of my persona that I can express and I can lean into. And I think that's an important part. Like, I think it's good to be able to bring your whole self to work, but I think it's also important to be able to have some compartmentalization of your life as well, that you're not just
for sure
all or nothing. It's kind of, you have these different spaces which you can exist.
Yeah. On that, you have been recognized as a top 25 women in tech. What advice do you have for women in music and specifically in the audio tech space that you think is incredibly important for them to hear today?
It's a big question. I mean, I think over the years, I've definitely felt like the environment of working in audio tech has changed. I do feel like it's not just about equality. It's not counting how many people are in the industry, but I think it's definitely the feeling of inclusion. I think there's a much more inclusive environment within audio tech now, which is probably much more accepting of people. And I think more women can feel at home and at place in it. But I think if I was to give some advice for women going into audio tech, I think it's to kind of really value what you bring. I think sometimes you might be the only person like you in the room, but that doesn't undermine your contribution. I think everyone has a certain contribution to give. And I think although there's much more that we all have in common than we have different, I think sometimes there is an energy and a thought path that a female can bring to a room that is uniquely feminine energy. And I think sometimes it can really help cut through some of that testosterone and complication and find rationality and understanding and actually help a team to work much faster. And if you think about it in audio terms, it's like a well-balanced mix, right? If you go into the mix, there might be a lot of low energy going on. There might be a big loud kick drum. It might be some heavy toms, and there might be a load of bass guitar and some synth. And there's an awful lot of kind of energy in the lows. That doesn't undermine you coming in with your high synth part, right? That's still completely valid in the mix, and it's a bit different. But actually, that high synth part is everything for that track. It helps to bring balance and clarity and depth. It brings melody. And I think even if you're a little voice or a single voice sometimes in the room, don't undervalue the significance of your inclusion within that room, and don't give up.
That's beautifully put. I was thinking as you were saying that too, now, like, what a beautiful continuity too of you as managing director as the mixer. Like, you go from being that one little voice that is like adding to the whole to, which is exactly very much like a traditionally like feminine in the best ways, right? To balance, to help create harmony and energies and stuff. And like, as now the mixer of these many parts to create that thing that is more cohesive and something that someone's not just going off over here, everybody's together making a track. The continuity of that struck me as powerful too.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but I like that. Yeah, it's still mixing.
This episode is just going to be called the episode of metaphors and analogies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm so happy right now. My brain is like fireworking.
Steph and I have been talking a lot about, and we've talked to a lot of guests too, about the idea and difference of feminine leadership. Mm-hmm. And how we think there needs to be a little bit more of that, because there is a different energy that comes to the table when a woman comes up and is leading a group of people. I really like what you said in that area too. And then it also brought me back to what you said earlier about how you fought to have sales in your title for being the only woman, as being that representative voice for other women to also see themselves in those positions, because it is still pretty rare to have a woman sales leader.
I think I've gone through sort of many stages over my life. And I think as a very young child, I was definitely the big dreamer and kind of, I want to make the world a better place. And if we can all just love, and fairies and skipping. And then I kind of went through a phase of actually just feeling quite angry, because I realized that the world wasn't such a beautiful place, and that there was some very mean and unkind people, and a lot of people that didn't seem to care. And I also realized that no matter who I was or what I did or what I said, it just wasn't very important to people, most people. And I realized that no matter what I did or how I did it, society always saw me as just a statistic. So, no matter how hard I tried at school or no matter what I did, I was still just going to be the mixed race kid from the council estate, from the single parent family, that there was all of these stats. I was just a stat. And it really bothered me, because it was like, I just felt like no matter what I do, this is the box that I'm going to be put in. And I just thought, well, actually, if I'm going to be a statistic, I can't change the way society works. That's the way that people's brains get happy, is they categorize everybody. They want everyone to identify as something. Identify as this, categorize them as that, put them in a box over here, because then we can understand it better. And I thought, well, actually, if that's the way society works and you have to be a statistic, then I'm going to be a good one. I'm going to be a good statistic, and I'm going to fight the other way. So I'm still going to be the other. I'm still going to tick that box. I'm still going to be the minority, but I'm going to be the good minority, and you're not going to stop me. And so I think it was kind of that grounding was a part of why I was like, yeah, I'm going to be the female sales lead and I'm going to do these things. But I think now stepping into this role, it does feel like really powerful for me to be like, yes, I can be a non-white female leader of a global musical instrument company. And yes, that might make me a statistic, but damn, it makes me a good one, and hopefully not a minority for long or forever, as more people realize that this is a path that's possible for them as well. And I think that's important to me. And it's not to belittle anyone else's journey or to, my white cis male friends, but it's kind of there's space in the room for more people. And I think it's important more people have an opportunity to shine as well. So it does feel good to have got to that point. There's a lot more that I would like to do in my lifetime, but that's important to me to fight the statistics sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, that's so stinking powerful. And a little bit of from the beginning as that permission to be like, well, you never let me into this, status quo anyway. So guess I'll be a creative thinker and do things my own way. And okay, right. There's a little bit of weirdly permission to live a really authentic, unique path when you are by force not put into that norm. Does that make sense? It's a really interesting way to look at it of okay, well, here I go. I'm going to kill this. I love that. I love that perspective on that. That's powerful.
I guess it's another way of reframing things. I think it's sometimes life can feel so helpless. It feels like everything is against you. And I think it is super hard sometimes, but I think you just have to find a way. It's if failure is not an option, because you need to pay the bills, you need to keep a roof over your head, you need to kind of make things work. It's what choice do I have but to find a way and not to give up? And that means I would definitely say over the years, I have put a shift in, and that's been at the sacrifice of previous relationships. It's been at the sacrifice of spending as much time as I probably wanted with my children. It's been at the sacrifice of my social life and some of my friends. I'm there for people as much as I can, but, I am a workaholic and I enjoy my work. I love my job, but I think my work ethic over the years has cost me as well, if I'm completely honest. But I think it's been so important to me to continue the journey. And, why not? The amount of times over the years, it's how many men get asked, what do your children do while you're at work?
Yeah.
And oh, but how do you travel? Don't you have kids? And it's yeah, I do. Oh my God, don't they miss you when you're traveling? And I'm well, yes, of Of course they do, but like everyone has different shifts, right? You know, someone could work in the city and they leave before their kids get up and they get home when their kids are in bed. They're not traveling, but they still don't see them. You know, some kids' parents are doctors or nurses. They work at the hospital. They do night shifts. They sleep in the day and they work all night. You know, that's just life. Like life means that we're not all kind of living these like mythical lifestyles where someone's just, you know, doing the 9 to 5 and then everyone sits around the family table gushing over each other at what a wonderful day they've had. That's not the reality that most people live in. And it's like, I feel that there's still so much bias of kind of, yeah, I can be a mum and I can be in this industry and I can travel and I can do different things. So even with that, I realized some of my choices are a little bit of my rebellious nature. But when I was looking for an au pair, because I was a single mum for a while as well, and when I was looking for some help with childcare, because I couldn't afford a nanny at the time, I looked for a male au pair. So when I was going out and working, I had a wonderful, actually, he was absolutely wonderful, but I had an Italian guy who was looking after my son. And reasoning at the time was I wanted him to have a male influence around him. I wanted someone that could go to the park and play football and do like boys stuff that I would try to, but I do think it's important for him. But that used to drive people wild because they'd be like, right, so you have help with childcare? And I said, yeah, I do. I have an au pair. And they'd be like, what's her name? And I'm like, well, his name is. And they'd like absolutely melt. They'd be like, what? And it's like, yeah, welcome to the 21st century, darling. It's like, you know, we split these roles now. It doesn't make anyone less of a man to do a bit of housework or look after their children or look after kids. Like, it makes them a more rounded human. Like, we both do these things. We share these tasks. And that's life outside of the Victorian era. Thank you very much, you know?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Legend. That's a good kind of segue too. We like to always end these and just thank you for everything. That's why we like to end them with, who are you outside of your work at Orange? What brings you joy? Like these days, what lights you up when you aren't managing directing?
So when I'm not managing directing, apart from just listening to music, I mean, I love my vinyls and all my music. I've got too many speakers in my house. It's a problem. But I'm actually like really into nature. I love being around trees and water. And I am a secret twitcher. Like I love a bit of bird watching. Like my favorite gadget that I've got recently is an AI bird feeder. And it's awesome. It's like,
to like where you, it shows you.
It's got a little camera in the bird feeder. And then when the birds land on it,
cool.
It scans their little beaky faces and it tells you what species of bird it is that's on your feeder. And then it tells you how many times they visit. So I really love that at the moment.
Fantastic use of AI right there.
Yeah.
That's what I want it doing. That's amazing.
I love my tech gadgets, but I also love nature. So that was like the perfect combination of things. This is combining my love of tech with a little bit of nature.
Oh, that sounds stinking fun. Who do you have on right now? Or was the last album you were listening to?
Actually, have a look. The last thing on my record player right now is actually a bit of David Bowie. That's what's on there at the moment.
Nice.
But I mean, I listen to everything. Like,
yeah,
I really do listen to everything. I'm one of those people I'd find it really difficult to do a Desert Island Discs. I think it would change every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. This conversation was just filled with so many metaphors and analogies in the absolute best way that has my brain moving in so many different directions. And you're just such a light in the industry. So thank you for all that you do and will continue to do. We're just so grateful to know you now. So
yeah, and for bringing yourself in this role and everything, like the way that you look at the world and the industry and everything, I am so happy to know that you are in it, spreading that. And just being you and touching every corner that you are working on. It's just such a positive force. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been lovely talking to you both. And you'll definitely have to stay in touch. I'm looking forward to hanging out in person next time. And yeah, I think all of us can continue spreading that light together. It's been really joyful speaking to you both. And thank you very much for inviting me on.
Yay.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Revoicing the Future. You can subscribe to the podcast on all major streaming platforms or on our website. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay connected on all things women in the music industry. This podcast was co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olson.